We're going to close out this wonderful day with a third block, which we call Success in Business. The first speaker we're going to listen to is a seasoned professional with global experience and also an IE alumni who's joining us from New York, Ramón Martín, who's head of global merchant sales in solutions and also governor of the World Economic Forum. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Let me get rid of this. Can I? For those of you that are on the break rooms, there's a lot of space here. So if you want to come down, you will be more than welcome. What a difficult act to follow. Esteban, Joseph, Ellen, it's almost impossible. And so I was thinking about how should I change everything? And I decided that the best thing to do is start with the title of what I was supposed to be talking about, which is what leads to success. And as I was thinking about it, we were just coming I was coming with my family from the city that will be the new home for my daughter Alejandra as she transitions to college. And this was 2 painful years of exams, going through college visits with her mom, a lot of anxiety, eventually going through the acceptance letters to make a decision on what will be yet another change for the family. So we had succeeded. That was great. We had succeeded again. We had another daughter in college. That was great. But that kept me thinking around, how do you define success? And I believe there are 3 really important points that we should be considering. One, and we did hear that today many times, is every one of us will define success in a different way. The second point is that whatever your definition will be highly influenced by change, because we are in constant change. And then the third one is nothing is given. You will have to fight for absolutely everything. So let me start with the first one. Actually, when I say that every one of us will define success in a different way, that definition will also change throughout the life. And we'll see that as we get into different stages of our lives and our careers, we will change our own view of the success definition. Here, actually, with those ones that are coming, come on. We have a great representation of industries and a great representation of professions and different stages on their careers. When I was networking earlier, there were a few that were just graduated from IE. There were others that were graduated a few years ago. And actually, I found a couple that graduated 25 years ago as I did. And I know that that makes me sound old, but I'd rather see that as experienced. If I think about 5 different companies, 18 different jobs, 6 million miles in my frequent flyer account, and every one of those miles sweating to try and avoid something like what you had, literally. 5 painful family moves. And what I mean painful family moves is you move the family from Madrid to London, then you take the family from London to Miami, from Miami back to London, from London back to Miami, and then eventually to New York. And I'm still married, which is amazing. But the reality is that whatever we think about our own definition of success will be grounded on our principles. And the one question, and it came today a couple times, that you will have to ask yourself is, what are my values? And this is not a rhetorical or an ethical question. It's really about what is important for you. Because at some point, you will have to start making the decisions. At some point, you will have to be able to find your equilibrium. And I really think this equilibrium is not balanced because it's not given. You have to get it. And it's really difficult. It's not about personal versus professional life. Both intersect time and time again. And whatever decision you make on one will have an influence on the other one. And that's why I think that finding the equilibrium is one of the elements that will lead to success. The reality is that however you do, whether you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a a stay-at-home parent, you will have to make decisions that will lead you through a path. And the reality is there's not a single path, or there's not a better path than others. You will have to find your own way. It's true that there's one that is more often traveled, in which we tend to start our careers looking for more. And we want more money, we want more titles, we want more square meter on an office, we want a bigger car, we want more. The good news is that at some point, everything that you've accumulated, you can give back. You will see that. There's one important milestone when you have that career of looking for more, which is the first time you have to lead teams. To me, that has been a great area of success, actually. Every time I build a team, I look for only two different characteristics. I look for diversity and talent. What I mean by diversity is it's not about gender or race, it's diversity of thinking. Several years ago, I had someone in my team was from India. And time after time, you would see him literally lying on a table. Because he found his inspiration practicing yoga on top of a table. So I had to give explanations every time, but the reality is his contributions through the team were amazing. When I talk about talent, is every time I build the teams, I try to look for people that are far more intelligent than I am, people that I would love to work for, people that could take my job in any moment. Because what happens is, eventually, if you continue that path that is often traveled in which you look for more, at some point, you end up leading leaders. You end up leading people that lead others. And now you not only have to deliver results through others, but you actually have to communicate through others. And this is a major milestone. I personally, and everything I'm sharing is based on my own personal experiences, I've worked as an individual contributor, and I managed global teams of more than 20,000 people. And there's a little secret here, which is it doesn't matter if you manage 20 people or 20,000 people. It's just a question of scale. Perhaps, the real meaningful difference is the bigger the teams, the greater the impact you can have. And it's positive or negative, which means you have to be thoughtful about it. So that's one way in which people look at success, which is trying to get more people. There's another way, which is we start looking at more money. And the bigger my numbers, the better. If my P&L is great and have more zeros behind it, I'll have more success than others. There's a story. A few years ago, I was the country manager of the business that I was running in London. And I had this perception that I was the mayor of a mini city because I was invited event after event. And one of those events was the launch of the first tickets of Virgin Galactic. Richard Branson was there. And because we were the main distribution partner and I was representing the company, I had the opportunity to actually spend time with him. We had a conversation that left a profound impact on me. At some point throughout the conversation, he offered me a job. And so we had been talking for no more than 20 minutes, and he was offering me a job. So I looked at him, and I graciously declined and said, "Thank you very much, but I have no idea about the business that you want me to run." What he told me is, if you can run a company, you can run any company. You just have to be ready to fail, learn from your mistakes, and try again. So that kept me thinking, and I apply that every time. And the question that all of us should be thinking is, how do we react to success? How do we react to failure? I try to celebrate with my teams failure exactly the same way that I celebrate success, because it's the only way that you make progress. Actually, I'm going to spend a second talking about a study from a competitor, Durham Graduate School. They looked at the characteristics of those leaders that achieved results above average, okay? And they defined those as successful leaders. They found that there were 5 specific characteristics. The first one is that those leaders had a very rich experience throughout their careers, and they knew everybody in their organizations. The second one is those successful leaders bent the rules. They base their success on the basis that what a company doesn't know is more important than what the company does know. The third characteristic is they manage risk. And they found that those individuals that were bending the rules at the same time were willing to assume a degree of losses on the basis of their mistakes. The fourth one is they prefer people to data. Those of you that were earlier here, they prefer the eye contact as opposed to only looking at the numbers. And then the last one is they empower their teams and they make their teams accountable. I believe that actually being able to celebrate mistakes, being able to get a team that can make mistakes, but at the same time you can make them accountable is one of the ways in which you can lead to success. I was talking about accumulating, but the reality is that at some point accumulating doesn't work, or at least didn't work for me. I was given a job to manage a company that was losing a lot of money. We were losing clients, we were losing people, good people, and I did try to turn around the company doing exactly the same thing that had worked for me in the past, which is try to accumulate relationships, accumulate partnerships, accumulate everything. My assistant was an ex-member of the SAS, the British Commandos. So this guy had a square mind. And every day I would come to the office, he would say, the company is demanding leadership. You have to tell them what to do. So whatever took me there wasn't working anymore. I looked at him, Jason is his name, and I said, look, if I really want to be successful, I need time to think. I need to be able to define where do I lead them to. Okay, next morning, and this is no kidding, I opened the agenda and had blocks of time in pink, I still remember the color, that said thinking time. Which is something that works really, really good, because I have 2 daughters, and whenever I get in trouble with them, I say, I need thinking time, so I can escape. So let me talk about the next point. I mentioned that we all define success in different ways at different stages of our careers. The second one is life is in constant change. So I'm going to share an experience. 2 years ago, I changed jobs. And after 16 years working at American Express, I moved to Ibiza, which is like you move from Atletico Madrid to Real Madrid or vice versa. So it's terrible. So that was a really difficult decision. And as such, I did seek counsel from my friends, my mentors. I was asking everybody about what to do. And I built tremendous models to define what would be the right decision. One night, as I was having the conversation at home, my elder daughter, Maria, she looked at me in the eyes and said, what are you thinking? It's your time to change. Every time we changed, because we moved numerous times, we, meaning they, had to find new friends in new schools, in new cities. And you told us to enjoy it. So embrace the risk and take it. The rest is history, and I still work at American Express. But the reality is that all of those models didn't work. It was someone pushing me to actually find what was the right answer. Time after time, you will be confronted with the question of when do I have to change? And you will have to be ready to answer that question. You will have to know what is it that you're trying to get. As you can imagine, I had numerous talent discussions in my career. And time after time, the question that comes is, what is the company thinking for me? Where will they take me? I personally believe that that is wrong. I personally believe that we and only us have the sole responsibility on our careers. And we will have to fight for everything that we want. At some point, we will have to be able to identify what are we good at. And we will have to become extremely good at it. Because that will define your brand. And we have to think, do you know your brand me? You know what people know you for? Because that will define where you have to put your energies. At some point, you will be confronted with doing something. And I believe that it takes a lot more energy to move from being a real disaster to being mediocre than it actually does from moving from good to great or to excellent. So I believe that focusing on your own strengths, don't try to change who you are, but try to improve the way that you operate will lead you to success. And as you do that, you have to be willing to learn constantly. This is a few years back, probably more than 10 years ago. I was managing a large group of customer service representatives, okay? And I used to sit with them listening to client calls because I found a lot of knowledge around the conversation that I had with the person that I was sitting with, as well as the client calls. One day I was on my regular spiel around the career, the history, the strategy of the company, and the guy that was sitting in front of me, he told me, you know what? I don't share what you think. So why? He was a cage fighter, and he wanted to become a professional fighter. And as such, picking up calls was only a step on what he wanted to do. So from that moment, that kept me thinking around, how do my messages get across the organization? How do they understand what I communicate? So from that day, and this is more than 10 years ago, I built a network of reverse mentors. And traditional mentors are typically older than we are, they are more experienced than we are. What I do find is a lot of inspiration from far junior levels in the organization, a lot younger than I am. And that helps me tremendously. It becomes a really important sounding board. When I moved businesses, I thought that because I had been working in the industry for so many years, actually the change was going to be easy. But the reality is that first day in the office, I'd sit in a meeting in which we talk about APIs, SDKs, UIs, the Internet of Things. I had no idea what they were talking about. So here, my reverse mentor group is helping me tremendously. With them, I discuss if Facebook Cash is better than a Snapchat Cash, or how do they share Uber rides. They are becoming a really important instrument for me to continue progressing. Let me move to the last point. I mentioned that we all define success different at different stages of our careers. Life is in constant change. And the last one is nothing is going to be given. You will have to fight for it. You really need to know what is it that you're trying to achieve, because it will take a lot of energy. And I believe that to be successful in that fight for whatever you want is you need to focus on the 3 H, which is the heart, is the head, and the hands. So the heart is what really pushes you, is what pushes you both mentally and physically, is what helps you go through criticism, mistakes, failure. And we had a very fit panel. If you run a marathon, it's what takes you over the wall. Your head is what allows you to plan, is what allows you to take the learnings from your mistakes. And then your hands is what actually helps you push, and push towards what you want. And that push for what you want eventually will take you to finding your own equilibrium. And you will find that there's not a single path, there's not a single way of being successful. You will only know if you are successful, at least for me, if you're happy. And if you're happy, that means you've probably found your own equilibrium. Equilibrium that in my case, it wouldn't have been possible without the help of my family, and especially my wife, Maria. Thank you.